great pleasure now to introduce Tina Borgia, Creative Manager from Multicultural Cumbria. Tina's been working with Multicultural Cumbria since it became a charity back in 2017, where she has co-produced and directed Multicultural Cumbria's most well-known and award-winning event, the Cultural Bazaar, alongside its founder, Saj Ghaffur. With over 25 years experience in the performing arts and community engagement, Tina is now the Creative Manager of Multicultural Cumbria. Tina encourages people from all backgrounds, from all the multicultural diaspora of Cumbria and the wider community, to engage and integrate across their communities through programs and projects that mobilise and connect people. She develops opportunities for young people and adults to gain the confidence to share and develop their skills and to be proud of their unique cultural heritage, enabling and empowering them to be involved and at the forefront of the community. Tina created the Dance Carousel Around the World project to provide an exclusive opportunity for women from a broad range of cultures to embrace and share their individual authentic dance style by enabling them to deliver classes specifically for women, to encourage women from all cultures to participate, get active, improve their well-being, and most of all, to have fun. Tina is passionate about the power of collaboration and is proud to be working with Carlisle One World Centre to develop Carlisle International Women's Group, who meet monthly for coffee mornings and link with various other organisations and events across the county. Most recently, the group worked collaboratively with Furness Multicultural Youth and Community Forum to produce a popular online event for International Women's Day that was nominated for a Diverse Cumbria Award. Over to you, Tina.
Thank you, Lee. So I'll just start by talking a little bit about who I am, what I do, just to put everything into context. So excuse me if I'm looking this way, but if I don't refer to script, I will go completely off piste and we'll be here all afternoon. So many of you may remember your careers advisory session at school, and a lot of people said that that wasn't very effective for them and didn't really reflect anything about them. Well, I was told that I would either do something which involved me working with people or with my imagination or creativity or both. So I feel like they got that pretty much spot on, really. So what's a creative manager? It's interesting that we've been talking about identity in the last talk, because I've felt like my own personal identity has been in a constant state of flux for the last 26 years, all of my career, in fact. A lot of people know me for my performing arts background, some people know me for my dance background, and others have only known me in a community working capacity, and are often surprised by my performing arts background. I always thought that my dancer image would have faded in Yorkshire when my joint condition forced me to stop dancing before I moved to Carlisle 20 years ago. Apologies for the repetition for those that have heard this before, but once a dancer, always a dancer. Either it won't leave me, I can't leave it, or other people won't let me leave it. But considering the conversation earlier about my wider intersectional identity, I'm now also a person who has a disability, as I have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. I use crutches sometimes to walk any sort of distance and sometimes have to use a mobility scooter. So to some extent, I can understand marginalisation, but I appreciate it's very, very different. I'm happy with my image and where it's at now. I'm proud of my multiplex image. In fact, I don't really work if I try to separate the things out. If I try to separate Tina the artist, Tina the activist, for want of a better word. I tried to look up for a better word from the thesaurus, my trusted thesaurus, because I felt like activist maybe sounded a little bit precocious for me. And it came up with mover and shaker. So I think I'd like that on my job description now, Saj, please. I'm a mover and a shaker. So in short, the job has evolved over time, and I liken mine and Saj's roles to the theatre, where you would have an executive director essentially responsible for the business operations or management of the organisation, aka Saj, and the artistic director who drives what I consider to be the fun stuff, the events, the projects, the overall programme of activity and so on, me. But in truth, there's a lot more crossover than you might actually think between us. And I think it works well because neither of us are too precious about our areas of expertise. Ambitious, yes. Passionate, absolutely. But precious, absolutely not. We always say it doesn't really matter who is doing the job as long as the job's getting done. And in fact, wherever possible, we don't want to leave any stone unturned. So if we're not doing it, we're hoping that the other one is doing it to make sure that things are happening. So we are now also gradually growing our capacity. We're getting more staff. So we have the beauty of being able to share the load with them too. So we're now moving and shaking together, sometimes literally. So the arts is my tool. Because it crosses boundaries so naturally, it represents cultures so vividly. It's the basis of our references to many different cultures, you know, the dance, the dramas, the music, the food. And my own personal fascination for all of that goes back to my uni days when I had the amazing opportunities when I lived in Yorkshire, being able to sample lots of different dance styles with different teachers from different diasporas, authentic dance styles, which were incredible. And my fascination has just really kept on growing since then. But there's plenty of other room for other stuff as well as the arts, and that's why I'm so passionate about collaboration. I really believe in playing to our strengths. We can achieve so much more together because we've all got different things to add to the pot. To coin a lecturer's phrase, a lecturer that I had at uni, she used to say that I'm a great believer in begging, borrowing and stealing from each other. And again, that goes back to not being too precious about things because we're always able to learn from each other. The other thing is, I think, to try really hard to leave the ego at the door. And we've all got an ego. We all want to be successful, but I think that we have to consider whether that's actually going to help us to achieve what we want to achieve ultimately, to make a difference. That's a really big thing, and I found that often a lot of the projects that have worked the best is where people have been able to leave their ego at the door. So at MCC, we approach every project in pretty much the same simple way at the start. What, why, where, when, and how. Quite simply, if we're not enthusiastic about a project or event, then we're probably not the right people to be doing it because we've not got that drive behind it. Because we're not caring enough about it. You've got to care about it so that you can make it sing and shine. And if it's got no substance, the truth will come out eventually. It's also important to know when to pull the plug, because if you haven't got the capacity to deliver it, or you feel like you started something but you're flogging a dead horse, we've all been there, it'll fall flat and you'll be remembered for that. But it's okay to make mistakes as well. We dust ourselves off and we start again. And on the flip side of that, it's also about learning when it's the right time to take that huge leap of faith, apply for that big pot of funding, the big lottery money, or to join forces with a new partnership. Sometimes we can be building a relationship with individuals in the community for years, with partners and organisations before anything comes of it. But we know that every single conversation that we have is useful. Everything, you're learning from all of it, and you're sowing little seeds as you go. Suddenly the fruits of your labour can spring into action when you least expect it. For example, the International Women's Day that Lee referred to, yes, we were nominated for an award. We didn't win the award. However, I think that although it might sound a little bit cheesy, we all felt like we'd won after that event, because it was so special, and all of the partners who were involved, Carlisle One World Centre, Furness Multicultural Community Forum and Multicultural Cumbria, really collaborated. It was a true collaboration where we all inputted into it. We all played to our strengths and added different things into the pot. And there was that thing about not being precious it was so apparent, because if somebody couldn't do something, somebody else would try and step in and try and help. Or if somebody felt like they could probably do something that somebody else was doing better, they'd step in and say it. But there's a way of doing that without, you know, rubbing each other up the wrong way, for want of a better way to put it. So the success of it wasn't really just because of the numbers, although that was successful at 128 for a day of online activities, including over 50 women who signed up for the evening for the open mic event. But the success really was down to the feel of the event. Like Saj said, the smiles on everyone's faces, the comments in the chat box, and ultimately the incredibly moving and insightful poetry that the women felt comfortable enough to share on that evening. And it was one of those projects that actually just sprang up. We were actually told that we were approached by CDEC and told that we had the opportunity to have a small pot of money if we collaborated with other diversity organisations across Cumbria. We were approached in December. We had a couple of weeks to get an idea together. We had to hit the ground running by January and spend the money by the end of March. Okay, then. Sometimes that can be a recipe for disaster if you're just trying to pluck things out of thin air. And sometimes you're forcing something to work, which is driven by the money rather than the needs for the work. But fortunately, this was one of those occasions where all of the bits of the recipe all came together, and it just really worked well. There are ways that we can gather evidence that these sorts of things work. I know that there are ways that you can measure health and well-being. There are various tools out there to be able to do that, but they're quite contrived and lengthy, and I'm not quite sure that you get a true feel from people unless you do more of a creative evaluation. And we use things like film and photography and asking people to leave comments. It's also about using your intuition and constantly being willing to adapt to make things more accessible for people as you go. If something isn't working, how do you change it? How do you update it so that it's accessible to people from all cultures? I'm not trying to teach anybody here to what's the phrase, grandma to suck eggs, whatever that one is, because I know that there are people here who already deliver and do this work really well. I'm just trying to give my perspective on it. So I was asked recently where my passion for equality comes from. And really, I think that it's really difficult to pinpoint that because it feels like it's so embedded in me, and it links to lots of things like witnessing racism on the school playground, seeing it within my own family and just being absolutely appalled by it, and also seeing my cousin having to hide his own sexuality for years, or feeling that he had to do that, and just things like that, making people feel uncomfortable. I've just never been able to understand why people feel the need to segregate others, and in fact don't have that urge to want to welcome people. I don't get it, I've never got it, I hate it, and I always have that urge because I want to give everyone the same opportunities and the same treatment. I guess that it's probably fair for me to address maybe the elephant in the room. I'm doing this job for Multicultural Cumbria as a white British person, and I just, when I was thinking about this, I thought back actually to an article that Lee wrote for our Culture Club magazine last year called Imposter Syndrome. If you haven't read it, it's really, really interesting. I hope he doesn't mind me referring to it. But he talked about the fact that he's a white British straight male, yet he's heading up the equality, diversity and inclusion in the university. And he said, you know, that isn't lost on him. And that really resonated with me. You know, I get that. It isn't lost on me either. I know that can be difficult for some people to understand. But Sarge and I enjoy working together so much because we try really hard to carefully consider and represent the different sides of the coin. And we're able to do that because we are of the two different races. We're only two in this massive pool, so yeah, it's a small representation. Nonetheless, we're able to do that. So I firmly believe that that's the way forward, trying to work together, at least for us at Multicultural Cumbria, so that we can really integrate people. We can work in smaller separate groups. In fact, it's really important that those smaller separate groups do exist. For example, like the Indian diaspora have their own Diwali events, and recently we've been supporting the African Forum to develop. And those Black people, Black and brown people, deserve to be able to be in a space with other Black and brown people who understand them and can relate to them and feel that sense of belonging. And I think it's really important that we are here to be able to support those groups to develop, whilst encouraging and empowering them to share their culture in the way that's important to them, and also enabling them to take ownership over that. That's really important. But I also want us to have the opportunity to feel like we all belong together. So yes, I want authentic dance tutors of dance styles that are native to their diaspora or culture, because tokenism is substandard. I don't want somebody who says, well, I've done a little bit of Egyptian belly dance, but they don't really understand that and understand the culture. We're not giving people from ethnic minorities the opportunity to share if we're doing that. And we're not respecting the communities that we work with who need to feel valued and also deserve to have the real deal. But I also want white British dance tutors to work with our diaspora tutors, so that we can share good practice and we can learn from each other and develop ourselves as individuals as well as professionals, where we can perform positive integrated relationships. And I'm seeing that happen so beautifully across the Dance Carousel project, and people, the feedback that we get is so empowering to want to keep that going, to know that it's making a difference to people. So just to kind of finish off, I think I just want to say that we all know that racism it still occurs on so many levels, and I still find it impossible really not to be surprised by it when it rears its ugly head. My daughter always says to me, why are you so surprised? You know it happens. But I can't. It's like listening to Sarge read that letter earlier. She talked to me about it before, so I knew what was coming. It doesn't stop me being shocked about it, doesn't stop me from feeling absolutely devastated by that and made me feel really upset. It's so embedded in society, but I also think it's important, as Sarge said, to know when, but also how to call it out. For instance, if you know that someone is well-meaning, but their terminology is out of date, perhaps point it out, but perhaps also take into consideration that they've told you that they actually care about these issues and they want to make a difference. So you don't want to alienate them by making them feel unworthy for trying and getting it wrong. It's okay to get it wrong. But also, I just want to ask, when is it okay to call it out when it's blatant racism aimed at a white person? Because it does happen. Should the white person be better able to tolerate feeling confronted just because they are privileged to not have witnessed the same amount of pain and suffering? Of course not. But it's so easy. It's not so easy to call it out in that instance, because by comparison, we would feel petty. But it shouldn't be like that. It should simply be equal. It's not simple, is it? There's no such thing as positive discrimination. It's a contradiction in terms, but we are in danger of encouraging this, I think, if we don't try to work collectively and come together, collaborate, understand from each other, and especially today from all of the different talks that people have given, it's really apparent how much we can learn from each other. And that's when hopefully we will be able to get towards that ideal of equality. And I'm just going to finish with my favourite little quote from the good old Bananarama. It ain't what you do, it's the way that you do it. There you go. If anybody would like to ask any questions, feel free. Thank you.
Thank you, Tina. Yeah, we'll just ask if there is a question, if people could pop their virtual hand up, and then we can look to unmute you. Just while people may be thinking about that, Tina, as well, am I right in thinking you maybe wanted to mention something potentially new and up and coming in November from some developments you've made?
Thank you for that, Lee.
You're welcome.
So we're very, very aware that we've been working on developing women's groups and women's related activities over previous years. That's just the way that things have happened due to opportunities. And we really want to try and involve men more and give men in the multicultural community opportunities to come together, share their culture, and give them a chance to do and socialize doing the kinds of things that they want to do, that they enjoy doing. So to try to kick that off, or at least to try and kick off that conversation, we are going to be holding a drop-in on International Men's Day this year, which is on the 19th of November, 4 till 6 p.m. at a venue to be confirmed. But I think it's probably going to be at the uni. We think it's probably going to be at Fushill Street. Yeah,
that's right. So, yeah,
but we'll confirm that and get flyers out over the next few weeks, digital marketing and all that stuff, so that people can sign up. But historically, it's been really hard to engage men with a lot of the work that we do. So please, if you know anybody, or you've got a husband or a son or anybody who you think might benefit from being involved, or just might be interested in any way, please encourage them to come down. We're not going to be threatening. All we're going to do is have a cup of coffee. In fact, I don't even think I'm saying we. I am not probably going to be there because I'm not a man. So my husband has kindly offered to head that up, and we're trying to encourage some other people. So some of you will know Mike Borgia, who has been production manager on Culture Bazaar over previous years. And he's also got a lot of experience working in diversity in the community. So yeah, he's going to help facilitate that. But it really is just to get that conversation started.
No, thank you, Tina. That's brilliant. It's great to hear about, new projects that have been developed to impact our local community as well. It's fantastic.